This video is about replacing the control board and related assembly to this BLUESTAR double oven. Parts came in a pretty large box. You have the control module in one side, and then you have the display assembly on the other. You notice here on the one side of the box, you got a little bit of damage right there, but I looked inside and everything was okay. As we go through the inside of the box, what we find is we have some instructions. Two instructions sections. One is a safety worksheet. Okay. That tells you how to handle the pieces and parts inside. See if I get back far enough, you can enlarge it. And the other sheet right here is the actual installation instructions of the control board and the assembly. Okay. On the instruction sheet, which tells you about handling, one of the main concerns is about static electricity, and that don't handle the parts until you're ready to install them. Talks about holding your boards by their edges so you're not touching contacts or any of the components on the board. Again, it's about static electricity. Gives you some instructions about how to remove the connector assemblies, which will connect the board to the control panel. The first instruction is to disconnect the electrical power and then remove the screws from the bottom of the control console. I'll show you the location of those screws as it shows right here on the oven, and then we'll get going. So the very first thing is we turn the breaker to the off position to the oven. We then verify that the power to the oven is indeed off. Contrary to the directions, there's a third screw that needs to come out in order to remove the control panel. Second step is to remove the ribbon cables from the console and put the console on a protected surface. It doesn't necessarily need to be on the French doors. See this ribbon cable right here? ribbon cable has a little clamp on the top. Like, go ahead and stop here. Wait for a second before I can figure it. Here's that the cable comes out by just putting a screwdriver tip in between here and prying the cable out, just like that. So now we take the console face apart, or actually off of the unit. And here we can just set it on the countertop or something that's got protection on it. So this is what you're left with right here. And the instructions in the manual say that, yes, you can remove those screws right in there with a stubby screwdriver, but it also says that probably the best way to do it is to replace the board is to actually pull out the oven and disconnect the power, which is something I'm going to do. So I've removed the drawer underneath here, and in the back you see the power. I'm going to take that apart. Can you see that?
Okay.
See the box right here?
Yep.
The whip has now been released. Now it's time to take out the oven. Now this little piece of equipment is a lift. Basically it's a foot powered lift, and it's probably the best little piece of equipment you can get if you're in the business of installing double ovens, which I'm not, but for me, picking up this 300-pound oven wasn't something I wanted to tackle and just try to lift it and manhandle it and put it in place. So that's what we're looking at right now. Okay, so now we're going to lift this up. Okay. As soon as you see the oven clear the bottom, you'll be able to pull the oven out. Just enough to where you gain access to these screws up on the top. A little bit more. Here are the screws on the top that we were talking about. The back 3, 2 on the side, 2 on the side, and I don't see any in front. So we'll get those off. Okay, now that we've removed the oven halfway and removed those screws, what we're seeing here is that we need to disconnect the high voltage harness assembly from the relay board connectors, which is figure 6. Push the tabs, give it a little wiggle, and it's out. Push the tabs, give it a little wiggle, and it's out. In figure 8, actually back to figure 7, we've already removed that previously. So we're now skipping on to figure 8. What it says is you got 4 screws to remove so you can mount the new control board. And what that looks like is up here. You see that looks like a shield of some kind. And then you have some screws off to the side. Probably, you know, the ones, this one right here, and this one down in here. Here's the old control module or the PCB board coming out. I've already disconnected it. Ribbon cable's coming up and it's out. This is interesting. Here's your old assembly right here, and here's the new assembly right here. It is massive compared to the old assembly. It looks like it'll fit in its place, but gosh, that's a lot. Since these screws in the front are much deeper in the back, and I'll just touch them. There's one back here, there's one right here, and there's one right there, okay? And then you have these two, one right there, and then the one over here. There's 5 screw holes in the new board. Because of that, you have an option to either take off the entire panel, this back panel right here, or become a little bit creative in getting the control board in, which is either removing those screws altogether Okay, so now we've got the board installed. The holes did line up. So I'm just going to have to trust that this is the correct board for this unit. So at this point, I'm going to have to pull out all the pigtails to make sure that we can see them. There's one power pigtail, which I've got out. There's the other power pigtail that I've got out. There's the third pigtail that I've got out. I think there's a multicolored one too. Oh, I see it. I move this one out over to here. So now I've got all sorts of pigtails coming out of here. And over there too. We're going to connect, or we already actually have connected the high voltage connector from the rear control board, which is the lower oven, to the connector that goes to the lower oven on the far right side of the control box. And for all intents and purposes, this guy right here is the back of the unit. You can kind of see it back there. And as we follow it around, here's the far right side. And on the next page, which is figure 11, we have connected the high voltage connector from the front control board, which is this guy right here, front control board, to the oven on the middle right side of the control board. And here's what that is right here, right there. That's the middle right side of the control board. There are some low voltage wires that come from this unit to connect over to the other unit. This unit's a little different, that both of these, the red ones and the blue ones here, are on the board right here. In the previous model, here's where they are. They're these two guys right here. It doesn't show that in the directions, but here's where they're at. This here with 6 wires goes to the front control board, and this one with the 2 wires goes to the rear control board. Apparently these white wires don't mean anything, even though they're connected to the unit. I'm going to verify that, but that's what it looks like. Here's where we are right now. Got one pigtail that comes up to talk to the front console, and then right here, if you take a look at the top, these blue wires right here, these 6 of them talk to those 6 wires back there. And these 2 red ones right here talk to those 2 blue ones right there, it looks like. The connectors fit perfectly, but the colors do not match. That's going to be a question I'm going to have for the technician at BLUESTAR, but that's where we're at right now. I'm going to button this top back in and set it in place for a while. Here's the button console all put back together again. It's just one clip that goes into the back. Then you push the console piece on the top, it snaps in place. 5 screws go in the bottom, and that part is now done. I will continue on, hook up the power, and then we'll test the unit. And voila, our oven is up and running, and we'll be starting to bake and broil and do all those nifty little things pretty soon.